It's time to stop calling for the National Football League to better protect its players when it comes to head injuries. Simple reason, they can't. They're doing all they can. The players are the ones making the decisions. And people need to realize that if you play high school football, college football, and pro football, there's a good chance you will die horribly, in pain and in suffering, simply because the sport can't do anything about it. Let's get down to brass tacks, okay? Tracy Scroggins died recently. He spent 10 years with the Detroit Lions. He was only 56 years of age, and he retired in the year 2001. Turns out his family revealed that since retiring, he had been dealing with the effects of CTE. Now, without going too deep into a lot of the science, CTE is a brain bruise. That's when your brain makes contact with the inside of your skull when it gets jostled around, when it gets bruised, hurt, damaged. And guess what? Brain cells die. And that means something goes wrong with the brain. And there's a good chance that it's only going to get worse. I mean, I could give you all the medical details on CTE, but you can look it up. And not only that, most people have already talked about it. This has been discussed ad nauseum about how the National Football League better do something to better protect its players. Well, they couldn't protect Tracy Scroggins. They can't protect the players now. And every time somebody goes out and says, well, wait a minute, they're wearing those halo helmets now. That's supposed to help. Ooh, that's supposed to make it a little bit easier when the head makes contact with the ground, when two heads bang together, when somebody's hitting each other like that at the offensive-defensive line of scrimmage. Oh, when something happens out in the field, heads come together, that's going to protect them. It's not. And the National Football League, to their credit, is doing the absolute best they can. But the problem with it is you can only protect the human skull so much, and you can't protect it from certain hits, certain damage. It's impossible. It's simply the way the human body is made. Let's also then dig down deep into this whole CTE issue, because a lot of people will say, well, wait a minute, okay, Ed, stop a sec. Tracy Scroggins died of CTE. Well, come on. Thousands of people play in the National Football League every single week, every single year. We don't hear about them having any problems. Do you remember the name Junior Seau? One of the best defensive players to ever play in the National Football League. He died, and when they cut into his brain, they found out that he had been suffering from CTE. It had damaged his brain. It had damaged his ability to live normally. How about Aaron Hernandez? Remember him? The guy whom basically came out of college after being let off the hook for a lot of different felony issues as well, came into the National Football League, played for the New England Patriots, and eventually he became a killer, a murderer. Well, turns out when Aaron Hernandez committed suicide in prison, which he really got off easy for what he did and the kind of raucously evil person he was, they cut into his brain. And they found out that it was possibly one of the most invasive cases of CTE they had ever seen. Not only that, Boston University, back in my old hometown of Boston, Mass., has a division, has a study group that deals with CTE. And I'm going to get this right, because since 2008, they have looked at about 350 brains of NFL players. They have been donated to them, and they have researched them. They have cut into them. They have dissected them. They have looked at them with so many different tests. 97% of those brains that were donated suffered from CTE. It killed the men that suffered from it. CTE is debilitating. You lose speech. You lose motor control. You start to waste away. It is invasive, and it doesn't stop. There's no way to get to it right now. I mean, they're trying. They'd love to find a cure for CTE, but they can't. It's in the brain. And therein lies the issue. When I heard about Tracy Scroggins dying, I immediately started to hear all the old arguments once again. Well, the National Football League better damn well do something to protect their players. They do. They try. I mean, let's be fair, though. There was a time when the National Football League couldn't care less about protecting its players. I mean, for decades, They didn't do anything. They knew about potential brain injuries. They didn't necessarily know it was CTE at the time, many years ago, but over the years and the decades, they knew. They knew their players were being injured. They knew their players were basically facing a dark future where they were going to die terribly. And they didn't do anything about it because of the money involved. What are they going to do? Change the game? It's not going to happen because fans love the game the way it is. So they didn't do anything, but then the evidence started to creep up. Then name players started to die. Then players who were alive started to talk about suffering the effects and having CTE symptoms. And the National Football League basically got shamed into it to decide to do something about it. They changed the rules. They put up the halo helmets right now to make sure that players don't get as beat up as much in the brain as they did before. But without going into a lot of medical mumbo-jumbo, and I could because I researched this for over 20 years and did a lot of stories on this for news networks. It is literally impossible when the brain moves. This happens in our daily lives. When we're playing with our kids on the carpet, when we're out playing touch football, and we reach out for a pass and we fall and our head hits the ground. When we play other sports, look, people have been studying soccer players for years. Soccer players have no helmet whatsoever, and those heads come together violently on the field. And they're looking at cases of CTE from kids and adults who play soccer. Soccer, the sport you'd never expect to be a problem. But that's simply the way the human brain is made. And when we're dealing with other sports, so look at it this way. People immediately go every time we discuss this, and they go, hey, Ed, you're a hockey fan. Hockey is just as bad as football. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not a head-hunting sport. It's not an automatic head-hunting collision factor. And to the favor of the NHL and the NFL, now when they find out about concussions, they put players into concussion protocols. They're doing the best they can to keep them from getting out there and getting their bell rung over and over and over again, which then brings us to Tua Tagovailoa. And this is the crux of the issue. Tua's taken a number of concussions. He has been warned. The last time he got them, he was warned. Doctors came to him and said, you've had way too many of these, and the possibility does exist that you may already have a version of CTE young in your life, and it may get worse. If you got it, it's undoubtedly going to get worse, and you may die a horrible, painful, disfigured death. But Tua said, I'm going to play. See, that's just it. The players all want to play. Can't stop them. What are you going to do? You can't play because CTE might kill you? No, the NFL won't do that because they'll throw up their hands and say, we're doing absolutely everything we can. It comes down to a player choice. Every single one of these players believes they are completely indestructible. I mean, this happens. Look, when you're 12, 13, 14 playing in Pee Wee football, when you're 18, 19 playing in high school, when you get to college, when you get to the pros, you believe you're invincible because you're young, you're healthy, you can't see anything. It's there in a lot of the players right now. Parents, if you're letting your kids play football, I mean, they're doing the best they can to protect these kids, but it's not foolproof. It's not. But you're making the decision to allow them to play. It is possible that your child at the age of 13 can suffer a concussion. You don't know it. You don't pay attention to it. The doctors don't see it. And it eventually becomes the core of what will turn into a CTE illness later in his or her life and will kill them. That's the basic premise of all this. That's the truth. That's the fact. And when I go back to hockey, hockey has more injuries to the face, legs, hips than anything else because it's not a sport where you're banging heads together every single second. In football, look at the line of scrimmage, banging heads together. Look at what goes on in the field with a receiver who gets hit, banging heads together. Head comes against the ground. And the ground's not soft. What do you think that is? Just some nice little fluffy grass that's there? No, it's not. It's hard turf. And these players' heads are bouncing off it. And quite frankly, there are some researchers I've talked to who said it is possible that as we sit here today, at least 60% of NFL players are suffering some early stages of CTE. but they can't see it. The only way to find out is to cut the brain open. That's it. That's why they have to have these brains donated. So a lot of times they're finding out after the fact, which leads to those 97% of brains that show some signs of CTE. Players like Tua have decided that they're going to go ahead and play. He doesn't want to wear the halo helmet. Okay, they can't make him. There's no way to legislate it. But the players believe they are invincible. You can't stop them. They're basically saying, I accept the risk. So if they accept the risk, National Football League has to wash its hands. And now let's talk about the fans. Because so many times the fans complain about the halo helmets being worn, and the fact that the physicality is gone from football, and the fact that the plays are different now, and there's more penalties, and players are being taken out faster. Yes, you know why? Because they could die. They could suffer some sort of an injury. How about 2 or 3 concussions in a season? Some players do it. Look, I go back to the time when there were players who suffered dozens of concussions in a season, and they kept playing. And many of them died. Horrible deaths. They weren't able to enjoy their retirement. But let's get back to the fans for a second. Fans are all pissed off and wankery about this because they say it's not the football I grew up with. No, it's not. And it shouldn't be. Because we've got to protect the lives of the individuals and do the best we can. So instead of sitting there whining and wheezing about how, things aren't as physical as it used to be, how about you get down there and put your head on a line? How about you get down there and slam your head together a few dozen times in a minute or so? Okay, see how it feels. Grab a couple of concussions and see about how you come out of the cobweb feeling in that. I've seen guys suffering serious concussions. I've seen them take days and even weeks sometimes to get back. And every single one of them was from football. But like I said, there's a lot out there in soccer. There's some in hockey. Baseball, basketball, not really. It's occasional. But in those sports where the head makes contact, people can die. So as fans, you gotta back off. You gotta understand that the game needs to change. The game of football has to change and has to become safer. Do you really want to take a chance that your favorite players are going to die simply for playing a game? Look, horse racing is the only organized sport in the world where the athletes basically are killed if they don't do well. We'll get on to horse racing at another time. But as far as these players are concerned, we don't want them to die. We don't want them to retire from football and then basically be vegetables. Now, to some players' gain, they're saying, I'm done. They're out after 4, 5, 6 years. They're stashing away their money. They're walking away from the game. Why? Because they've seen these studies. They've seen what happens. They've watched people become drooling vegetables, and they don't want to do that. They want to take a chance on living a normal life. So how about as fans, you back off all this nonsense about how the game's not as physical as it used to be. The game is fine. The game is entertaining. The game is fun. The game is still fast. It is still one of the best team sports in the world. But so what? They got to make it safer. How about soccer needs to make it safer? Go try putting a helmet on a soccer player. I dare you to go ahead and try that one. These are the choices men and women make. They have decided to put their lives on the line. They have decided to try to not get injured. They have decided to hope that they're not going to die and that they're not going to get wrapped up into this concussion issue. And just like Tua Tagovailoa, they're going to continue to play, and you can't stop them. So it is their choice. It's their choice to take the chance. How about we understand the chance they're taking and not be such morons when it comes down to complaining that the game's not as physical as it used to be? Say that to the next player who dies a terrible death. Say that to the family of Tracy Scroggins, who died at the age of 56 after playing only 10 years in the NFL with the Detroit Lions. Maybe then we'll understand a little bit better that sports is there for entertainment, but never, in any sense of the word, is any sport worth dying for.